Hey everybody out there, my name is Dragnix, and this is Super 3D Noah's Ark. This is an old game ported to the PC. It actually was on the PC and the SNES. I wasn't expecting to talk about this game in terms of like going into a really let's try detail portion of it, but surprisingly, I had fun with it, and surprisingly, the port is rather one of the better ones I've seen. This was done by a specific modder, or a specific porter who apparently is known for the quality of the ports, and it shows. And I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. Now, for those who obviously have played the old school FPS genre, this is based off of the Wolfenstein game. You are Noah, and the idea here is that Noah is trying to, deal with the animals that are a little bit rambunctious, and so he needs to put them to sleep. Now, this is based off of the Wolfenstein 3D engine, and the thing is that it's sort of comical. The idea of you go from a Nazi shooting, bad guy killing kind of game to Noah throwing feed at animals. Now, this isn't just a clone of Wolfenstein 3D. I want to make sure that people understand that. There are similarities in terms of movement, in terms of controls, but there are a lot of differences. Obviously, you're not killing your enemies, but I'm not even talking about that. The maps are different and laid out differently, and there are little details that are different between the games in question in terms of enemy reaction. In particular, what I noticed about this game is its level design is reasonable. Now, you do see a slowdown right here, which was a little bit weird. The game had not done that up to that point, but I will get to the port portion of it because the port actually runs at a really high frames per second. It's not like it's a graphically intensive game, not so much, but it's more so that usually with ports like these, I expect, bad things. I expect, things not to go well. This one is completely the opposite. It's actually done rather well, and a lot of options are added. Now, you do get little questions like this, like, okay, what title is Noah given? It's obviously Bible themed. I'm not a religious person myself. Obviously, you can tell with some of the questions that I get wrong there. But there are little nice touches, like the gates there that you can break out of. That was interesting to me. They've actually put a lot of time and effort into this game. Now, it was a knockoff of Wolfenstein 3D, and it was the original game was definitely not a, what's the word I'm looking for? It shouldn't have ever happened. It was obviously infringing on copyright, but honestly, it's interesting because the game actually plays a little bit differently. Enemies don't shoot at you, but they do sort of do this sort of weird V pattern at times, trying to get to you at times. Some of them do. There are varieties of enemies here. Some goats will spit at you, some will not. It's depending on the color selection here. Now, one thing I don't like is the fact that it's really hard in this game, unlike the Wolfenstein games, to understand if you've hit an enemy or not. You can tell when you've hit an enemy because they'll pause for a second in this game, but in the old Wolfenstein, there was a motion. There was okay, the soldier got hit, and he would sort of, do a little bit of a hold off there, like he would like freeze for a second, and it would be noticeable in terms of the motion. Here it's not so much, and that makes it a little bit hard to understand what the enemy is doing in terms of whether or not you hit them, especially with the no bullets at this point and no bullet firing mechanism. In terms of, you saw the flash of a gun somewhat in the Wolfenstein one, but here not so much. Now, the game I'm playing on is hard, and actually there is a challenge a little bit. Again, your ammo is your feed, and you have to keep that in mind the entire time because all your weapons use that feed. Every level you get the percentage of how many animals, fruit, and secrets. Oh, would you look at that, secrets. Remember those guys in first-person shooters? I do. Now, before I go into this next section, I want to show you the options because this is something I really want to talk about. It's amazing to me that they had so many options. You have mouse enableability, mount sensitivity, for example. You don't see this on ports nowadays, especially old ports. Disable Y-axis, customize a control. You can customize entire keyboard, mouse, and a joystick if you have it. That to me is amazing that this game, which is definitely an old game, I would not have expected some of the things that it gave. Now, it's still using a Sound Blaster as the label there. Okay, that's weird. But look at the display options in particular, the screen resolution. It goes up to a ridiculous screen resolution in 512 by 2080. And it actually looks like it is in that screen resolution. Obviously, it's a pixel graphic style, but it uprises it rather correctly. It's amazing to me that a game like this, we see so many mobile ports nowadays barely give the effort to actually go and do the port right, that this game went the obviously extra mile to make sure the game was playable for people. I have to give them credit for that. Now, in terms of the first-person shooter genre, it's obviously no Wolfenstein, it's no Doom in terms of those old ones, but it does have that unique sort of comical feel to it, and honestly, the game plays rather well. Now, it's not difficult. I mean, at least once you get a hang of the mechanics, you will get into situations where you'll run into enemies that will give you trouble, but if you just sort of look around and make sure everything is, you know, nothing's hurting you from afar, and you actually go and try to find the secrets in the level, things will be much easier. Again, exploration in these old FPS games was a necessity because those games could really, like here, notice that difference on the wall, and that would reward you with something significant. For example, this weapon. Now, Total Biscuit would probably be complaining about the fact that this weapon model is taking up about 1/3 of the screen. I know you can look through it, that's a little bit nice, but it's one of those things where if you explored and actually take a look at where you're going and what you're trying to do as opposed to going from like checkpoint to checkpoint, the game would reward you. And I do like when games do that. I do wish that that trend would come apart, or I mean come to the new day in terms of game design. Now, the sound is obviously Bible-esque, or, you know, sort of that, you know, happy kind of music. It is going to wear on you after a little bit, but it's appropriate to the theme in question. You can't destroy those barrels like the old games. And honestly, it's one of those games that it's sort of out there in terms of obviously its message and its religious message, and the fact is they took the effort to port it, but I actually enjoyed myself with it. The thing is that what I was going to talk about originally with this video was sort of like morality in games in terms of the gaming industry right now. The sort of, we see people like Anita Sarkeesian, Jonathan McIntosh, and some game journalism writers talking about violence in video games, and you know maybe we need to, you know, step it back a second. The complaints about the new Doom, and then I wanted to use this to sort of justify how that can go wrong. The fact of the matter is that, you know, you change a game so completely that, yeah, you've changed its theme, but it's lost its identity in terms of like playing the game in question. However, then I actually played this game and I'm like, okay, fine. It actually does have its own identity and it does it well. Now, I will still argue the morality point in a later video, but for this game to surprise me like this is actually rather nice. It's rather nice that it's not a hardcore experience, but it's an enjoyable experience nonetheless. Especially with sort of just, it's got that unique aspect of like ridiculous nostalgia plus a little bit of charm. Now, I don't like rewarding games that obviously have sort of copied other portions of it without adding their unique aspect, but here they added their unique aspect. Other than that, the game does have some design flaws. Like, for example, you have no idea what the fruit means at first. The fruit is actually the equivalent of gold in the other game, where it's just a collectible, and it really doesn't do much. Now, weapons are pretty much all some version of a slingshot. This one obviously being machine gun, the other one being a little bit more of a damaging pistol of sorts. And there is this sort of unfortunate side effect of the old games where you can take damage across the room without really realizing it, and you can really get hurt because of that. As you saw there, I was getting hit by the spitting camel with a reasonable amount of health at that point. Now, there is a live system in this game, as you see there. As you score more, you will get more lives. There is keys, there are secrets. Again, I want to reiterate, I want secrets to come back in games. I want significant secrets to come back. As in, you know, really we're searching for those secrets like in Duke Nukem 3D, for example. It makes sense. It makes sense to actually go and search for them because they give you actual rewards as opposed to, oh, I found a secret. I mean, little, you know, specific, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Little nuggets in the game are nice and all in terms of things to look for, but, you know, giving a gun, a more powerful gun, for example, yeah, I want to see that. I want to actually give myself a little bit of a difficulty, a little bit easier on the difficulty by me using my exploration skills more than anything else. A lot of games don't do that nowadays, and I really wish games like this sort of came back. Yes, I'm saying that Super Noah Ark 3D has elements that I want for the industry to come back. I know that sounds crazy, but it's also the fact that, let's just think about this for a second. Batman Arkham Knight was ported. It's an absolutely 2015 game. Obviously, it takes a lot more effort to port that. Well, somewhat. Again, this is old code, and you have to update it to new systems. So there is a reasonable effort here. That game, in terms of Arkham Knight, came out in such a poor state in terms of the PC port, and yet you get a game like this where I wouldn't have had any expectation of a good port, and yet it did. This is probably one of the best ports I've played, just in terms of options, in terms of user playability, in terms of giving the user the experience of what the old game was. Quite honestly, it's games like this where the ports that surprise me that make it enjoyable to take a look at indie games and take a look at these kind of games, because it legitimately surprises you. Where you're sitting there going, you may have low expectations, like you see signs of a game maybe a little bit problematic in terms of, okay, I'm seeing UI design or I'm seeing a knockoff, but it's not a knockoff. It is its own game. It does have enemy design that's specific to this game. It has level design specific to this game. It has its own style specific to this game. I did not know that Jesus was descended from Noah. I learned something today. Overall, if you like the old first-person shooter experience with a twist, with a definite twist, this actually will work for you. Again, it's under $5, and honestly, I've enjoyed myself than some of the first-person shooters that I've played lately. It's silly, it's comical, and honestly, it probably shouldn't have been as enjoyable of an experience that it was, but it did the job, and that's all I can ask for in the end. Alright, this is Dragnix signing out. I will leave the review in the description below, as always. Tomorrow, I will be probably taking a look at Demons with Shotguns. I'm hoping. That is a local multiplayer game, and I gotta find a partner for that right now. Other than that, again, like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz, and keep on gaming. I'll see you later. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you like this content and want to see more of it, you may want to hit that subscribe button on the left-hand side. If you like this video and want to see more of this content, take a look at this video on the left-hand side as well. And if you missed my last video, take a look at the right-hand side. Once again, thanks for watching, and keep on gaming.